I grew up in Watford and later moved to Rickmansworth in northwest London. A few years ago, my parents moved to near Cambridge, so I did my last years of school up there. I always say I'm from Watford though, because I have the fondest memories there, and that's the place I feel like I was formed the most. To be honest, I don't think my background has, at least consciously, impacted how I see the world. But in my artwork, I used to paint figuratively. I used to paint people a lot of the time, and in a way to try and find a sense of place and a sense of identity, because I've never really developed a strong sense of belonging anywhere. So that topic I explored for a while. Now though, since my family live surrounded by fields up near Cambridge, when I visit I take a lot of inspiration from the quiet and amazing flat landscapes that are up there. In terms of artist influences, Sarah Dudman's artwork is currently my biggest influence. Her landscape paintings in particular are absolutely amazing, and she does a lot of mixed media paintings as well, where she uses different natural materials as her painting medium, like mud and sand and sea salt, which I really am drawn to. In general though, my A-level art teacher Dave Reed is definitely my biggest influence. Dave's approach to teaching art has seriously impacted the way I approach my own art today. He's also been amazing at building me up as an artist. I never did GCSE art, and halfway through the first year of A-levels I went to him and basically just begged him to let me onto the fine art course. Although I've always been a creative person, like I played a lot of music growing up, and I did lots of painting and drawing, even though I was really, really bad. He let me onto the course, and his teaching has actually just completely made me the artist I am now. He always repeated phrases like, don't be precious with your work and think through making art. Those sorts of phrases are constantly in my head when I'm working. So at the moment I'm focusing on environmental art, whether that be through abstract paintings or quite descriptive landscape paintings. It's mostly because, as my studio is in Brighton and I'm quite a fiend for marine life, I often take the bus along the seafront and reach some really beautiful places like Peacehaven, Saltdean, and of course Seven Sisters, because we've got the South Downs just right next to me basically. And this environment just seriously inspires me, and I can't help but focus my art practice on that sort of environment. I'd probably say that the biggest challenge of being an artist is suffering droughts of inspiration. It sometimes feels impossible to create any art, and other times it feels really, really easy to make paintings day in and day out. Especially if you rely on selling your art, it can really be stressful if you've lost the creative flow and you can't really think of anything that you want to make art about. But I think you've just got to trust that you'll find some inspiration and motivation again eventually. I've always found that making sure you're spending time in your studio every day, even if you don't necessarily make anything, it keeps that routine and it keeps me from going into like a complete creative rut. I don't really have much advice that I would give my younger self other than to just keep going and to be strong. I think painting has definitely taught me these two things, and it's really cool to see how it's always changing me in positive ways. In terms of any unconventional mediums or techniques that I use in my own work, the main one I can think of is avoiding using paintbrushes. In a lot of my more abstract work, I like to use old canvas rags as a sponge type thing, where I scrub and apply the paint. I always wear gloves, especially when I'm using this technique, because it's really not good to have like turpentine and oil paint on your hands. Especially if you paint every day, so I would just put that out there. I also work in really thin layers of paint, and rarely paint with oil mediums with my oil paint, like linseed oil. I tend to just stick with just turpentine and the pigment from the oil paint. It gives my paintings a bit more of a raw, rough feeling. I do, however, oil out my figurative paintings to keep the colour quite vibrant. With my figurative work, that tends to be the exception, where I paint with thicker mediums. You asked me if I like to listen to music or any other background noise, or if I prefer complete silence when I'm working. And it's honestly a mix of all three of these. Because I'm in a shared studio space, it's quite rare to have that utter complete silence, unless when it's early in the morning. So I don't have any music or sound playing, in the morning. But I always bring my earbuds and my soundproof headphones if I'm struggling to concentrate. I like listening to contemporary instrumental music or soundtracks. I make a short playlist sometimes with some specific pieces of music that emulate the kind of vibe I'm going to try and paint that piece with. I try and avoid anything with quite intense lyrics, because otherwise I feel like it just drowns out what I'm trying to do with my painting. But I would definitely say that music is important in my practice. It makes it easier to get into a creative mindset and also focus. The best reaction someone's had to my artwork has to be when I painted a painting for my mum. It was a painting of her granddad, who she loves very much and passed away before I was even born, so I never met him, but there was always this particular photograph that we always had in the house of him. I told her not to come in. I was painting it in the office at home, and I told her not to come in for the whole week while I was painting it, because I was painting something for her, I told her. I was using this photograph as a reference. I did this big painting, and then I finally told her that it's finished and that she can come and see it. As soon as she saw it, she burst into tears and, kind of dropped to the floor a little bit, and was just so overwhelmed, because she said that I really managed to capture what he looked like, and the essence of that photograph. I think she was also surprised, because she thought I was painting a picture of her, a portrait of her, and that was the surprise. But she said she was really surprised when she saw her granddad staring back at her again. Currently, as my work is heavily focused on the natural world, I hope people take away a sense of wanting to re-enchant with the natural world, as my art tries to illuminate that wonder of nature that I certainly feel. If the viewer feels any type of emotional response to my painting, I will see that as a successful painting then. I don't really want to dictate something particular that they should feel, but as long as they feel something, I definitely am grateful for that. Lastly, my art Instagram account is Célia Benson _art.